All right. Hey, thanks for joining us. This is John Kane with Johnny Rice. This is Let's Talk. And we got a good show planned for today. Opened up with Murray Porter singing lead on the Pappy John's band. That's Little White Lies. And that's what we're going to do the show about today. I mean, the kids are back in school. So now we got to balance. How do we deal with the omissions, the propaganda, and the outright lies that our kids, not only do they experience it, just generally, but a lot of this stuff is mandated in their curriculums that they're being taught. I mean, and I almost have a certain amount of sympathy because I know some teachers feel really constrained by it, but at every level there's still these areas of discretion. You can still teach the stuff that you're being mandated to teach, but at least let's somehow invite critical thinking. And if you're overwhelmed with teaching propaganda and expecting conformity out of it, that's a killer to critical thinking. So what I wanted to talk about today is, look, this is that time of year. Our kids are all going back to school. In my case, grandkids are going back to school. I did a show back home where I'm calling upon Native people to make sure that when our kids go to school and they come home, that we find out what they were taught now and somehow manage what they're being spoon-fed, so they hear not just a counter narrative, but our narrative about history, our narrative about science, our narrative about literature, all that stuff. Because it isn't just history class or global studies. I mean, it's politics, it's all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So part of what I want to do a show in New York about was because your kids are being exposed to stuff too. I mean, and look, we have Native kids here in New York, but the vast majority of people in New York City, look, we do events, right? We do monthly events, and almost without exception, somebody will suggest at some point during one of our events that they feel like their education has betrayed them. It doesn't matter if they got a master's degree, if they've got a PhD or several of them. It doesn't matter.
Well, and also particularly adults.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So these people went their entire lives never hearing other than what they were spoon-fed. And I take some of that back. I mean, look, we do have some broader thought. I mean, New York is a very diverse place, so there's an opportunity to learn more about this stuff. But when on the Native issues, it's still almost non-existent. Well, we're still battling the whole Columbus Day thing. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. Yeah. As a part of that, I would really love if a school teacher would call in. And we're going to go to calls in the second half of the show, but even in the first half, I mean, if there's a school teacher out there who wants to weigh in on,
does Donna teach?
No,
she's just involved with the.
Yeah.
Oh,
she sounds like my school teacher. No, no, but
could be.
I mean, anybody out there who's involved with early education, elementary education, even high school, if you'd be willing to call in and explain, I mean, give me some glimmers of hope anyway about how you deal with the stuff that the textbook won't cover. And so again, the studio line is 212-209-2877. That's 212-209-2877. If you're a school teacher, and that's what we're going to ask you first thing, are you a school teacher? Otherwise, we'll hang on to your call till the second half of the show.
Well, or because what happened, like what are the consequences that you face if you teach outside of the curricula, if you teach outside of that two pages that's dedicated to Indigenous history in the United States? Like what happens to you and what sort of, are you reprimanded at all?
Yeah.
Because I imagine that's the case.
Well, there's probably some of that, but But let's not. To be fair to teachers, I know you're overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed with trying to jam in a bunch of stuff in a short period of time, and so I know that that's a challenge. But this stuff matters. I mean, it really does matter that some diverse thought. I mean, look, I did a whole thing on 4th of July, and one of the things that is never talked about as the cause for going into a war of independence was the fact that the colonists wanted to depopulate the area and then repopulate it with white people. It's actually one of in the list of the facts submitted to the Candid World. It's like the seventh thing that they list. Oh, the king won't allow us to increase our population with European migration. They don't say European, but they sure as hell aren't talking about Africa. They're talking about more white people coming. And then they said, and they attach in that same complaint, which the reference to appropriation of more lands. So they want to repopulate. They want it, and so it sounds like an immigration thing, but it's about depopulation and repopulation, and that's a major part, and that never gets taught. And that okay, we do have a couple of school teachers on the line, so I want to go right to some callers because I want to have some of that conversation because I want to know what the limitations are. So all right, let's let me see. All right, let's see what we get here. Caller, you're up first. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Is that me?
Yeah, it's you.
Okay, great. Hi, Thomasina from Bergen County.
Thanks for calling.
And thank you. I actually been teaching for about 12 years, and we teach the question of was Columbus a hero or a villain?
Oh, great.
And I just want to let you know, in my classroom, that is a standard thing, and the standards are there. I just want to let you know. The standards are there to teach the atrocities of what happened to the Native people, but we also teach the Iroquois Confederation and how it laid the groundwork for Jefferson's thoughts on how to organize the government. It really came from the Native people. So I'm doing all of this in my classroom. I can't guarantee that others are, but I'll agree with you that if a teacher is not a progressive, they're probably not doing it as much as I am. But because I'm a progressive, I make sure I do it. I bring it to current day. I talk about the status of Natives today.
Where are you from again? Where are you teaching?
I'm in Orange, New Jersey, but I've taught mostly in the city.
Oh, okay.
And I'll never forget when I was teaching in Washington Heights, and the Dominicans were like, "What, Miss Schwartz? You ruined it for us. Columbus was supposed to be a good guy," and they actually came to the realization themselves that he was not the hero that they thought he was. Mm-hmm. So.
And it's the indigenous population of their homeland that really suffered most of the consequences. So that's
yeah. And the thing is, they grandized Columbus. I have never been to the Dominican Republic, but I heard that there's statues and all kinds of stuff all over the place there.
I mean, statues everywhere. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something. You said you bring it up to today, and I think that's the other issue. Oftentimes, when Native people are discussed in that page and a half in the history book or half page in the history book, we're always referred to as a people who once lived, like we don't exist anymore, and that's why mascots are seem to be so okay. I mean, that's why people can you can be honored historically and still be dishonored contemporarily, and that's so. I mean, when you talk about things like what happened with Standing Rock or any of the current missing and murdered Indigenous women, these things don't make it into most of the classes, global studies or anything else. Even the history of residential schools. So when we're tackling things like kids in cages, at the border.
Right. I don't mean to cut you off, but no. I do it all the time. We do the entire Americanization of the Native people. We show the dress, the before, the after. We show we go over the Dawes Act. I mean, we really go deep into the Americanization of the oppression of the Native people, especially that the children were taken away from their parents. No. I mean, we go into the entire thing.
Well, I got to tell you, I appreciate it, and I hope there are more teachers out there like you. I suspect there aren't, and I guess one of the things that Shawnee wondered: do you ever get any pushback from administrators?
No. You know what's funny? I mean, where I am in Orange, because we're a school of color, there's no question about it. But I guarantee when you're in, I've had to push back against teachers that don't want me to teach things like the hypocrisy of the Constitution that is occurring at the time of the enslavement of Africans, too. Like, they don't want to teach that either.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to ask you something. Would you come to my classroom?
I would love to come to your classroom.
All right. What should I do? Email you or something?
You can email me here at the station. If you, do you do Facebook at all?
Yes.
If you go on Facebook, look for me on Facebook. This show, you're streaming live on Facebook right now as we speak. So,
hi everybody.
So you can contact me on Facebook, John Kane, Kane. You can, I'd be happy for you to join if you join my groups. But yeah, you can contact me there. I've got all my contact information there too, so you can get a hold of me, and I would love to come speak to a class.
Okay, sounds great.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for calling. I want to get to a couple other school teachers who jumped on the line too. So again, thanks for the immediate response. That's just terrific.
I just want to also point out before another teacher calls that the thing that's also so confusing about learning this information through school is that you're supposed to trust your adults and you're not supposed to question your adults. So when these adults, historically have been white men teaching any sort of history class. I'm hoping that's changed by now, but they're the ones who are teaching you this. So it gets complicated when you as a child, have to disagree with an adult or even you don't even know how to frame that question. And sometimes if you maybe not believe your parents, if you don't feel like your parents are educated or know history or care about school, then you're still going to believe this person unquestionably. And that's kind of the structure of how the education is and how it is in school. It's just like another institution. So you think that is another factor.
And this gets right to what I was talking about the idea of stifling critical thinking, because this is we are pigeonholed so oftentimes as Native people, but even the non-Native students are being. That's the point that I'm trying to make here in a show in New York, is that your kids are being deprived of this education. All right, let me go to another caller. Caller, hopefully another school teacher. You're what's your name? Where are you calling from?
I am a school teacher, my dear friend John. This is Lourdes. How are you?
There you go, Lourdes. How are you? I should have had you join me as a guest. You could have joined me, or maybe we'll do it again coming soon. Every time I see you, I never see you in a school context, so I guess I completely forget that. But you're just my friend. You're not a school teacher.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I know that you're up for the challenge, but.
Well,
how much pushback do you get?
I'm an ESL teacher, English as a second language, so I push into a lot of history classes. So I see what a lot of history teachers do, because I'm not a history teacher, and I'm at the high school level. And it really is an individual thing. At the last high school I was at, I couldn't stay there any longer because it was quite appalling. What the history teacher was teaching, to the point of calling them savages.
Wait, Lourdes, where are you teaching?
I rather not say.
Oh, are you in New York State or New Jersey or?
No, she's in New York area.
Okay.
City, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And I got into many, many arguments, and probably that's the reason why I lost my job there, because I got into many discussions with the history teacher. Sure. About the racist way she was teaching, and these are all majority minority kids. And the great thing is, a lot of the kids, I agree with what you were saying, that it is difficult for children to challenge teachers, to even form questions, because if a teacher is so adamant in their racism, the way the last teacher was where I was working, the kids just shut down. And the great thing with these kids, they're all minority kids, they just put their heads down, went to sleep. It was their way of defying and showing resistance to her racism.
Well, and I think one thing I wanted to mention, and I know this may not seem like a high priority when people think about what the function of public schools are, but there was clearly a time, and this isn't just Cold War stuff, but certainly coming out of that, and even before that, the idea that schools were supposed to teach patriotism. They were supposed to encourage patriotism. Right. So this is where, when you skew everything like war is good and you romanticize all of this stuff. Even beyond the Native issues, there's so many issues that never get properly addressed because, let's face it, if you do a real analysis of some of the global conflicts, United States isn't the good guy that they want to promote themselves to be. So even that becomes difficult.
Yes, that's very true. But I do want to say that where I'm working now, I wouldn't call the history teachers necessarily progressive, but I am very impressed with the literature they bring on African Americans, on natives. With natives, they actually do this whole thing on Lincoln. and Columbus. And they just kind of reteach all this positive stuff. And then they blow the students away when they say, now we want you to read the truth.
Oh,
geez.
And it's just great because I use it also to teach them how to write comparisons, how to argue a point. And there's actually now really awesome websites that give both views, the Columbus, the hero, and then they give the truth on Columbus. And these are questions that are even appearing on the Regent.
Whoa.
So I think we are making progress. I think it's like 3 steps forward, 1 back, maybe 2 back.
Yeah.
But
Well, one of the challenges you mentioned the Regents, and I was speaking to a couple of professors from UB who were very aware when the New York State Board of Regents was kind of investing more in some of this diversity of thought anyway as it comes to history. And when it came to black history, they made sure they brought in black scholars. When they wanted to teach about the Holocaust, they brought in Jewish scholars. But they still never brought in Native people to be the scholars to talk about Native history. Even schools that have Native
agree.
programs.
And like the teacher that just spoke with you, I too would love to have you, John, to come over to our school. I'd love to do something where we can have like a series of Native speakers come in because these students would love it. And we just received 4 Native American students for the first time ever
Awesome.
at that school.
That's great.
Well, and this is the kind of stuff that goes a long way to esteem building for Native kids who are oftentimes ignored in with adequate history. So I'd be happy to do it, and you know how to get a hold of me. So
Yes,
let me try to give one more. I think we got one more school teacher on the line. So we've got 2 more. So let me try to get a couple more in before we go to break. All right, you're up next. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, my name is Mr. Muhammad, and I'm a teacher of African Islamic literature in Brooklyn, New York.
Hello.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for taking my call. And you was right earlier when you made the statement that when your children come home, you're supposed to pry into their teachings
Absolutely.
or their literature and find out. But even more so, you have to acknowledge to them who they are before they leave and go to school. Example, you and I speak English. That's a dominant culture from the Caucasian or English or England way of life. That is very dominant. You must teach them that that is not their own language. Not to go against the system, but you must explain to them that this is language that you must learn to function in America and society all over the world in general. Also, you must teach them about the word signature. Most people don't understand when you break that word down, you are signing the nature. Signature, you are signing the nature of who you are. These are 2 things for American society. And there's nothing wrong with that because, as you said about Columbus, he is their hero.
Yeah.
Now, to your people and to my people, he would be, I wouldn't say a villain, but a military enemy because basically Columbus was a man who was for the military based on reconnaissance, coming in, find out how many Indians, what type of weapons, so forth and so on, and then the military would come behind them and take us out, take your people out and my people.
Well,
So
I mean,
that's
it's
one
actually
story,
even, not that I put much dignity in that, but it's even less dignified than that because he is more like a mercenary because everything this guy did was based on money. So even though military responded to his, I mean, for him it wasn't necessarily about reconnaissance. It's what it ended up because he miscalculated the size of the planet and this idea that he was going to have a past, a more navigable path to silk and all that other stuff. But no, I would agree with you 100%. Back on the language thing, I think it's important that because English is the dominant language that many of us are using, that we delve into the issues of the English language. Look at this. Have you seen the big controversy, Ashani, on Dior's perfume.
Oh my God, yeah.
Sauvage. I mean, there are some people who that want to debate that. Well, the word savage isn't really meant to be bad. It just means people of the woods. Well, that's not what it comes to mean, though.
Right.
I mean,
that's not the context of it, and that's not how white people use it.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the Declaration of Independence. They referred to us as merciless Indian savages. They were not just saying, that we were, wood bugs. They were basically saying that we were, we were ruthless, and that, but the word of savage is meant to mean inhuman. I mean, it's about it's a dehumanizing thing. But when people want to play around with these words, they want to massage them.
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I can hear you. But
okay. Well, I was going to intervene right quick and say, well, savage is, if you want to break it down, it's animalistic. We all come out the womb as savages because we are all four, but we use another state of language for that. But anyone could be a savage, but we are not, your people and my people are not the original savages. So I'm not going to go into, I'm just hang up and listen to what you have to say.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate your comments.
Well, I was going to say about like the language of like that's a really important thing to talk about, especially with Indigenous culture, because the intentions and the meaning behind English words from Indigenous words are completely different things, two completely different ideologies, understandings, whatever. But I also wanted to point out like how important it is to note of like, in addition to like feeling uncomfortable of calling out or disagreeing with your teacher, in upstate New York, a lot of small towns in upstate New York, which is right surrounding by Haudenosaunee or Iroquois land, is that one, nothing was taught. I mean, at least when I was in high school like 10 years ago. But the thing is also is like, because I went to like an all-white school, and so the history teacher could say whatever he wanted, and as Indigenous descent, I had to be the one to speak up for that. And so that's an awkward thing when this is a white, authoritative white male. I'm a young little girl. I don't know how to even like enter into disputes or arguments yet. So he already has the upper hand, and he already knows how to create.
It's absolutely asymmetrical, because when they give this big narrative and then they turn to you like you are we're just going to designate you as the small authority to challenge what I just said.
So it can go in two things, and which we talk about this in the mascot, too, is like, so I'm supposed to be all knowing for all Indigenous cultures. I'm supposed to be the one voice. I'm supposed to know it all as like a 6th, 7th, 8th grade kid. Or I'm the one who has to speak up. Like, for example, my teacher said the N-word in history class because there was no people of color to call him out on it, except, I had just moved there, so he didn't know what was going to happen. But, he can get away with that thing, and those narratives and those, like, subtle microaggressions, like that's where it thrives in these small upstate towns. And our roads are named after every nation
cities,
imaginable,
towns, mascots,
but
everything. They have no idea what
we're taught is that it's in the past, and that's what these street signs are honoring. But
the word Adirondack. Do you know what the word Adirondack? That's a native, and it literally means they eat the bark.
You said that on the show before, yeah.
Adirondacks. And it has to do with people when they don't have enough food that they're getting their nutrition anywhere they can. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't necessarily meant as a compliment. But this word becomes romanticized. So and there's so much of that stuff. But that's just I think we have one more school teacher. Yeah. So we'll take this one call, and then we'll go to a break, and we'll come back and we'll open up the phone lines to other folks too. So you're up next. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. I'm Elle from Long Island. I'm an educator. Was president of a union for 12 years. And your first caller, in regards to, I have to applaud her for her taking the initiative and challenge to tell the truth and stand to power. I say that for this reason. I was in elementary schools, not middle or high. And students that came into my class, the class that I was in, kindergartners, they were educated in regards to various beliefs, culture, and truth. I taught them not only basically who they are and to stand and be proud of who you are, but know the historical facts. And remember, his story may not necessarily be your history.
Yeah.
So for teachers who take stands, you may not be reprimanded directly, But you see, you have to be on, quote, the team. And being on the team means that you can be ostracized, you can be even sat up for certain things to occur. So that when they do occur, they'll say, oh, you see, I told you she couldn't do this or she couldn't do that. Or they'll give you more than the average teacher would take and expect you to fold under the pressure.
Ella, I want to respond to something you just said, because the other place that a teacher can suffer some reprimand is in the home. Because if a student says, well, I learned this, I learned something I didn't know before, and if that teacher becomes, or if that parent says, oh, well, she must not know what she's talking about, and because they weren't taught that, they think that there is no other truth than the one that they were taught. So that's another challenge that a teacher has to face, is because there may be not just repercussions from the school administrators, but even from, if not directly from the parents, if the parents dismiss the intellect of the teacher to their child, now that child may come into that class with a little bit of homegrown belligerence. So that's is an excellent point that you brought up.
And I will say this also. Keep in mind that there are some administrators who will use a parent to get at a teacher.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
And there are teachers who stand fast, stand for the cause, and will be in a situation where tenure will never come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
Okay? And in being promoted or being given the opportunity to move on, they will be held back.
Yeah. No,
to the
I
point
hear you.
where they have to take it upon themselves to leave the district. And I say this. Children are pawns that are used in the game by many folks who go after one thing, and that's money.
And the
Or
whole
religion.
education system is a lot of politics is played with it. Ella, I want to thank you so
A
much
lot
for
of politics.
I want to thank you for the call. Great comments. I sure do appreciate it. We're gonna go to a break, and then we come back. I know, Oshana, you got some announcements you want to make, and I want to keep with this theme. Of course, we'll open up the phone lines when we come back. The number's 212-209-2877. That's the number to call to be a part of the show. I want to thank all of you educators who joined me in the first half of the show. We look forward to the second half. This is John Kane with Johnny Rice. This is Let's Talk. No, we shouldn't be idle anymore. That's again Murray Porter from his latest CD, which is Stand Up. And again, we opened up with Murray singing lead on an old album that when he was playing with the Pappy John's band that was called Little White Lies. And if if you get a chance, go back and listen to that song through. It's very, very good. It was absolutely appropriate for the show today. So
that's why you put it on. Okay,
yeah,
with you.
Because it addresses specifically that there's not just omissions and and other ways of propagandizing education, but there's outright lies, and we can go well beyond Columbus on that stuff. So, all right, hey, I want to remind people that you can become a WBAI buddy, especially in the name of the show, anytime. You can go to the website, you can go to give2wbai.org. You can call the pledge line 516-620-3602. You can become a buddy anytime, and I would appreciate it. I mean, for everybody who signs up and lists this show as the show that you're essentially doing in the name of. You're not really sponsoring this show because we all support each other here. If you become a buddy, you support the entire station and you support all the programming. So again, I'd appreciate. I'd love to top the list. I'd love to be one of the programs that brings in the most buddies, and I'm up there. I'm not the lead, but for a once a week, 1 hour show, we do pretty good with that. So, but I'd like to see more. So again, 516-620-3602. That's the number to call. You can make a donation of any size, but you can also become a WBA buddy. You can go online, www.give2wbai.org. Then you can follow the steps there too. I want to remind people that this show does become a podcast. I load this thing up on SoundCloud, so it does become a podcast. We do stream the show on Facebook Live. I take the video and I put it up on YouTube, and it becomes one of the shows on my YouTube channel, which is Let's Talk Native TV. So I want to get that out of the way. I guess one of them comment that I want to mention is I am showing a video, a film at the end of the month on Thursday, September 26th, downstairs at the Brooklyn Commons. I've done this film before. It's called Even the Rain. I think it's the perfect film to show in the run-up to what some people will be celebrating as Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. It is a great film. It's a Spanish language film. I really knew, if you're a Spanish speaker in particular, I'd love you to come out and join us. Probably do it like 7:30 in the evening. I'll talk about it a little bit more, and we'll probably bang out a cart and have it played here on the station. So
what time?
Probably 7:30. It gives people kind of more time to show up. But
you can chat if you want to come early to chat at 7.
Yeah, absolutely. Show up at 7. And
show up earlier than later to chat, so we don't keep the people who work here late forever.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so that's Thursday, September 26th. Even the Rain, a great film. Look for it online. You can catch the trailer. It kind of grabs right off the bat. English subtitles, but it is just a tremendous film. So anyway, I want to put that out there. And you had a couple of announcements. You got a pretty interesting event that your friend is involved in.
Yeah. So we've been talking about challenging the narratives that we hear about Indigenous people, and so my roommate Arua Pasa is doing she's creating this amazing 3-day festival. It's called We Are Here Festival. It's from September 5th through the 7th. So the festival is a 3-day festival exploring Indigenous past, present, and future, created by Arua Paza. The festival will include work by Indigenous visual artists, filmmakers, and musicians who utilize their own technologies, ancestral knowledge, and survival tactics to reflect on what it means to live in a balanced life during an unbalanced time of late-stage capitalism. And she's doing this through Abram Arts Center, American Indian Community House. The New York Women's Foundation has helped sponsored, and New York City Cultural Affairs. And tonight, starting at 6:30, is going to be the film portion of it. And tomorrow, there's going to be an open gallery at Abram Center. In addition to, there's going to be a party with DJs and live performances at Hollow. And Saturday, I'll be DJing there during the day, and there'll be also more DJs and more live performances. If it's nice weather, I think it might be outside. But either way, there's a mix of art, of whether it's film or physical art structures in the gallery. And the gallery is open all day tomorrow and Saturday. And again, it's at Abrams Art Center, and that's in the Lower East Side. And this is a really big and beautiful festival. And Nauru brought Indigenous people from all over so-called United States and other territories. So it's going to be a really important and really beautiful way of not waiting for other people to teach our history, and we're doing it ourselves and letting anybody who wants to learn or participate come.
All right.
And you can show the flyer on the Facebook page.
Okay. And again, we are here, and
Others,
that's
right?
that is what we it is kind of our message here, and that's why I even think talking about things like education and that kind of stuff is so important. It is easy to pigeonhole an entire subject as if it was only in the past, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up as we were talking about talking to educators today. The other thing I wanted to mention is I understand that there is an age appropriateness to certain subject matters. I don't know. I mean,
I was actually thinking about that when they said to bring you into the classroom. I mean, I know that you can handle this.
Yeah,
concept,
I do recognize age appropriateness, but I mean, just between you and I, when can you think about at what age you become aware of things like real violence, like war, death, murder, rape? I mean, about even not necessarily to be scared of it, but I mean, I don't know. I was trying to think. Somebody asked me that question, and I don't know when I became aware. I mean, we video games. You die all the time, right?
Yeah.
You see, people die in cartoons and that kind of stuff. But the idea that kids are being taught about war at 5 years old. I mean, or if they're learning to recite the Star Spangled Banner, that's a song about war. I mean, think about these things that kids are being. And maybe they aren't getting deep into the subject, but you're already desensitizing them a little bit about it. So, and I wonder sometimes about the whole age appropriateness of many of these things.
I will say that in my case, I don't know if I'm an insanely weird person, but I know that from kindergarten, not that I knew what race structure was, but I made an attempt not to be friends with white people from kindergarten. And although, my dad's white, and I'm white, so it's not and my mom and my dad just told me you love everybody, so there wasn't any hate involved. I just knew something was off. And what was the real eye opener for me was because the song Tupac and Changes was playing on MTV. So every morning I would watch that before school. So I immediately was fascinated with social class distinctions and race disparity and what's happening here from that one song. And I was fixated on it from kindergarten. And, I'm obviously not saying I'm a genius. I didn't know what I was exactly thinking of. I just knew that this was something that was interesting to me. And so I grew up on a farm, so I knew what death was and that sort of thing. But I knew about it. That was those are my first conscious thoughts of were super dark
and
things.
Schools are incapable of managing that awareness.
So that's what I was saying too about it was really confusing because when I was watching the Tupac video, those are my own thoughts. Those are how I believe. But then when I'm going to school and adults are teaching me something else about history and they're teaching me something else about what America is, which is the opposite of this Tupac video, I was like, what's real? And then for me, when I moved, eventually, history just became a story to me. It didn't seem real. It didn't seem like it mattered. And this is because I was only learning the white history of the United States.
It was just bad literature.
I mean, how can it be that natives are 2 pages in our history book? Slavery was 1 chapter of the history book, and the rest of the stuff we had to learn about was different types of economies and an industrial boom. I didn't care about that. I cared about why are we not talking about Native people, and why are we not acknowledging slavery, and why are we saying that we should be pro-America in every breath of a social studies class, in contradiction to indigenous and African history of those people on this territory.
Absolutely. I don't want to change subjects too badly, but is there an event at the Commons today? Are they showing a film about nuclear weapons or something like that?
I think so. Yeah. If you want me, I'll take a look at that.
And we'll give it a plug before we go, because that's another thing that I feel strongly about, and especially the role the United States played in the nuclear arms race, the only country to ever use nuclear weapons. I mean, it's still, that's another subject that they kind of dance around, and they even try to justify today. You'll still hear people on Facebook and every place else is, well, if we hadn't used those weapons, dropping those 2 atomic bombs saved lives.
So
it didn't.
So my question to get into AP English or Advanced Placement English was to write an essay about if the United States should or shouldn't have dropped a bomb in Hiroshima, and I was the only applicant who wrote no, and they viewed my paper as being immature and unknowledgeable of the subject matter. And this was 7th grade when you had to write that paper.
Isn't that incredible?
And I was so confused. I'm like, this seems more of like, this isn't, I mean, maybe they wanted to see how you could write about like an argument, but this was more like embedded in like something that wasn't English, like history or patriotism or whatever.
So tonight is the film screening, The Beginning of the End of Nuclear Weapons, and that starts at 7 p.m. at the Commons Cafe, which is located at 388 Atlantic Avenue. And
I'm going to hang out for as long as I can. I know I gotta head out.
Hosted by Brooklyn for Peace. So
all right, sounds good. All right, let me go to a couple of calls. I know this was I really do appreciate the folks who called in the first half of the show, and it was really great caller. So let's continue on. Caller, you're up next. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Terry. I'm calling from Long Island.
Well, thanks for calling.
I was a teacher. You're welcome. Thank you. And I was a teacher many years ago. But when I was in school, I didn't. In my school, they taught the history, but it was more of a more peaceful. And they did explain that the Indians were, taken over and different things that happened, but they didn't really get into detail. It wasn't until I started teaching 2nd grade where I looked at the social studies book, and when I opened it and saw the image of the United States, and every entire territory was the name of a Native American.
A powerful image.
And that traumatized me to this day, because wherever I go, that's what I think about. This everywhere I go in this country used to be inhabited by all of those people, and all these people I see. I mean, I go to a festival or anything, and I'm like, oh, look at all these people. But these used to be only people that was indigenous to this country.
Well, in that subject, though, it isn't just about history. I mean, if you're going to teach economics and you're going to talk about how an economy can continue to grow at 3% over, forever, and if that's the goal, and you don't realize that the only way economies can grow at that level is, or historically has been, by appropriating more land, by taking this the basis for capitalism, imperialism, all of that.
And that's what's so difficult, knowing the horror of it all, because I'm African American. I believe in reparations because of us coming over from Africa, taking us from our land. But then I'm also in a land that was inhabited by other people, and there may have been people from Africa or other parts of the world that had been in this region, but these were the people that was actually living here. And so for me, until this issue is actually really addressed, not just talked about in school, but all the time, until this is really dealt with, this country will never progress, because it was built on a lie. It was built on murder and destruction, regardless of what they were trying to do for their people and how they wanted to live. Look what you did to other people, and this still goes on, in the world. But in this particular part of the world, in the United States, until that is really addressed and dealt with, and something is done for the Native people that still exist, I see no real progress.
I appreciate the call.
Because it can't be built on it's built on a lie. It can't continue. It can't go forward as long as this lie is here. The beautiful thing, though, is more people are talking about it, especially on WBAI.
And young people.
Yeah, but it's just horrible. It's very uncomfortable to know that you're living somewhere, and this is what happened to the people that was here. First was, and that's why I think that's also part of the pushback, and I mean the pushback with good-willing people, that it's very hard for them to stomach and deal with the reality of the situation, because you can't undo it.
Right.
You're living, you're progressing from it every day. You're gaining from it every day. Every time you think of a Native American.
And it goes beyond that, Terry. I'm so glad that you called, because this is this lies at the core of the foundation of the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. This stuff is it lies at the foundation of never properly addressing any type of reconciliation for the crimes of the past. So absolutely.
I mean, here's the specific thing though, which it's not comparing trauma, but Indigenous history is really unique in this country. For what you said is like, people can get behind why we need reparations for Black people because they were removed and brought here, but then they they can like justify it in their head because Black people are now a part of the economy and can make similar wages and have similar like ideas of equality. But with Indigenous history and indigeneity period, it's so heavy and so uncomfortable because
it was being wiped out.
But it's also like, to address this, we have to challenge our economic system. We have to challenge every single person who's profited, every single person who's in place, which also is the Me Too movement. Really, it's men, but it's the same thing because as people of color who are also on this land, who are also benefiting from being on stolen land, it's a really complicated area. And not that I would ever blame people of color or say people of color need to pay Indigenous people reparations because they were forcibly brought here, but it is a really complex place to be in at this time.
Yeah, whatever form it takes, there has to be some reckoning of some of the crimes of the past, and as long as we're gonna smooth over things like dropping atomic bombs on Japanese and slavery and genocide and residential schools and massacres,
Hawaii,
Hawaii, Puerto Rico. I mean, even you look at look what's happening to the Bahamas. If they hadn't been decimated by colonialism, they would be in a better position to even handle things like natural disasters that are also being caused by the same thing. So Terry, I want to thank you for going. I'm going to try to get one more caller in real quick before we go. We got to get out of here, but let's do that. Caller, you're up. You're the last caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, it's Donna from Langhorne.
Well, that's great.
Hey, Donna.
We won the lottery.
I know. What a great way to end the calls.
So just within the last few days, I was hit with what has happened because of lies being taught in schools. So with it being football season and the Chamonix, they're posting their pictures of their girls with the headbands and feathers. And so I took one of those pictures and I posted it saying, Neshaminy still celebrating racism. And somebody on there said, okay, people, do your thing. They wanted them to go after me. So this husband and wife couple who graduated in Neshaminy in 2016 came on and they were arguing back and forth and telling us, cursing at us and everything.
They graduated in 2016?
Yes.
High school?
Yes.
So they're babies. Okay, got it.
Yes. And what it finally came down to was both of them said to us, listen, this is what we know. We took your land. You're losers. We're the winners. We can do whatever we want.
Get over it. I don't get over it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what Neshaminy taught them, and then taught them to celebrate it, with the mascot.
Congratulations, you're a graduate.
But we're honoring you. But you're losers, and we can do whatever we want. But we're honoring you.
You losers by appropriating your images and calling you a racial slur.
Right. Now sit down and shut up. But the funny thing is, I had a few allies on there that were backing me up. Mike Wise was on there, and they ended up deleting all their stuff because they realized, like, we were going back and forth saying, "Oh, good evidence, good screenshots," and then they deleted everything. So it's like they got caught.
I jumped on that other school. What's that? Teton. That group page and was going back and forth with some of their folks over there, trying to say if you want to get rid of mascots, then you're essentially supporting Custer or something like that. And
that was that dummy Barrett Dahl. He posted all that crazy crap.
Anyway, but this is when we talk about education. There are schools not only that bear the mascots, but there are many schools that they paper over the reality of all this stuff, and that's why the work on the mascot issue is still important, because it is. I mean, look, whatever happens with the NFL franchises or the baseball teams is one thing, but there's no place in schools for this stuff. So
No.
Don, I want to thank you. We gotta get out of here. We've got another show coming up after us, so we gotta go. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always great when you sit in with us. So that's perfect.
Thanks for doing your work, Donna.
All right. Well, that's it for us. We'll be back here next week. Who knows what we'll talk about? I don't know. We'll come up with something. But thank you for everybody who participated in today's show. This was a very good show. I very much enjoyed the conversation. Thank you to all the callers, and we'll see you next week. Yahweh.
Oh no.